top of the show here today. On this Wednesday, December the 11th, I'm a little bit shocked at the news. I saw that Bill Belichick was talking with North Carolina about their job opening, but I never really thought that he would take the job. But I see as I am just turning on the live button that Bill Belichick is expected to be the next head coach of North Carolina. In basketball, there's a lot of older coaches. There's been coaches that I think of Larry Brown, who coached the Pistons to their last championship. When he was done, he wanted to keep, when he was done in the pros, I think could he have gotten another pro job? Maybe not. Maybe he was looked at, but he went back to college was the point. And he went to SMU because he loved coaching. And he went there. With this move by Belichick wanted to keep coaching in the pros, but nobody would have him. Guy won 8 Super Bowls. 8 Super Bowls. And no team wanted to give him the reins because of his approach to coaching. That's what, it's his way or the highway type approach, which is weird. And then it doesn't feel like this is like a Larry Brown situation where he just wants to go to college because coach is coach and he loves coaching. Maybe that's part of it. But I also didn't think he would, and he's dating a 24-year-old. I see pictures of him and his girlfriend. Love is great for everyone. I don't have much criticism on that, but it's a little weird. Say that. So that's weird. So I wonder if he's doing this because, his girlfriend, she'll be closer. She can walk around campus and she'll feel more comfortable. Is he doing it because of that? I don't know, maybe. And is he really doing it so that he can secure his son's future as a head coach in college? That one, we get nepotism. We saw LeBron James, the son, getting criticized because of Bronny and everything else. I don't have this, the silver spoon type situation myself. And I was never just, slid into any kind of, situation like that. Bill Belichick kid seems like he's doing fine on his own. Does he really need to be gifted a head coaching job? It was fine that he's got in it and he's working his way up. It seems like he would at some point get some kind of opportunity to be a head coach somewhere and earn it, not just be granted, because his daddy and part of his the deal, that's weird too. That whole situation of gifting his son, he'll take the job if his son can then take over, is weird. And it would be weird if you were the son. It's weird that he's doing it. And then I don't know what role that his girlfriend's playing in it. So that's all. It's bizarre. But here we are. It's 2024. There's a lot of bizarre things that go on. This is just another one. Good luck to Bill Belichick, unless they play Michigan. I'm like that. Whatever. Make it interesting down there at Chapel Hill. Now, we've got lots to talk about today. Sorry to get sidelined with Bill Belichick. We're going to go back. I was up late last night into today talking about Michigan's basketball game against Arkansas. That was one of the most grueling watches. Grueling in a good way. I don't want to make it sound like it was all bad. It was entertaining. It was action packed. It was a roller coaster ride, but it was tough. The up and down nature of that game. So I'll revisit that. I got some quick hitters, a lot of different things going on with Michigan that I want to get to, but the biggest news is that Michigan has found their offensive coordinator. Sharon Moore had a news conference last night. I don't know. It's 5:15 yesterday evening, late afternoon, where he wasn't talking about his new offensive coordinator. Although, he said it was going to be a day or so. So he knew it looked like it was already done. And then right after he adjourned the press conference, within a couple of minutes, it was like, okay, this is going to be the guy. I don't know. It seemed like it would have been, again, I'm saying seemed like, what would have been the harm to go ahead and just say, hey, this is going to be the guy? Then you could have talked about him a little bit, gave everybody an idea of what they were doing. But hey, he wanted to go about it his way. And I don't really have any criticisms about that. Why didn't he just go ahead and do that? It's just a point that I'm making. Or so, and I know it was technically a news conference about Michigan's bowl against Alabama, and so maybe they didn't just want to. His handler, Dave Abloff, didn't want everything steered towards the offensive coordinator. But hey, I asked 2 questions. Guess what? Both of them were about the offensive coordinator, and most of the questions were about the transfer portal, and I can't say anything. We're working on it. Not a whole lot about Alabama, but hey, that's, again, there it is. That's the way it went, and that's what happened with it. But Michigan does have their offensive coordinator, and his name's Chip Lindsey. Now, if you want to know all about Chip and you wanted to know all about it first and accurately and all of that, along with recruiting and the transfer portal and everything that goes into it, plus basketball and what's going on with the team, well, this is the place to go. The feed that you are watching, I work for the Maize and Blue Review on Rivals.com, and with the holiday season, I mean, it is here, right? I was ordering up some Christmas presents today. I feel like I'm in a little bit early. I was, getting some of those. I don't know. I was going to say what I was getting, but I'm not. Maybe my wife is watching this, wanting to know about the offensive coordinator. So I'm not going to say. No reason to tip my hand. Maybe I'm being like Sharon Moore right now. But I want to tell you this: for the Michigan fan in your life, this is a great gift. The gift of the Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I can tell you this: if I was a Michigan fan and somebody said, hey, I got you a subscription to the Maize and Blue Review, I'd have been like, that's creative. That is something that it's about, a tie. You can give me a Michigan tie. Your tickets are nice. Michigan basketball tickets, a Michigan tie, and a subscription to the Maize and Blue Review. You've done it all. You're talking about innovative offensive coordinator. You're an innovative Michigan fan. Give it a present like that to the big Michigan fan in your life. So, and maybe that person is you. There's nothing wrong with giving yourself a gift this holiday season. So take it from me, and I'd love to see you over there interacting all day, all night. And that is reality. I was up past midnight reacting on the Maize and Blue Review, and then up very early this morning doing the same thing. So all day, all night, that's where that comes from. We'll see you over there on the Den. So we start with the news of the new offensive coordinator, who was, is it ironic that it was North Carolina? I was going to say ironically that I've just been looking like you probably over the last 24 hours a lot at North Carolina, because that was the last stop of Chip Lindsey, Michigan's new offensive coordinator. And then, Bill Belichick, if you're just joining us, that's why it would be ironic, because he's taking over at North Carolina. That just came official. So people say, well, what do you think about the hire of Lindsey? Well, I like the hire. There's things that I like about the hire. I really like the Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, when he was at Army, when, I like his history, he obviously with Georgia. And the one team that Michigan was compared to a lot over the last, not this last year, but the previous 3 years was Georgia and how they played football. Tough, and the way they ran their offense and what they were trying to do. And Todd Monken was their offensive coordinator. And now Monken is with the Ravens. And we know about with John Harbaugh and all the connections on the defensive side with the Ravens and Michigan. And with Bryce Underwood, it's an easy comparison to say, who does Bryce Underwood remind you of? And when people say Lamar Jackson, I have to say, when I first heard that, I'm like, there's only one Lamar Jackson. And getting compared to Lamar Jackson, it's like, for years after Michael Jordan retired, there are always people like, oh, this guy's the next Jordan. It's like, there's only one Michael Jordan. What was the guy from USC? Minor, maybe his name was Baby Jordan. They were calling me. He couldn't play at all like Jordan. And then Kobe came along. I said, this guy actually is like Michael Jordan. He was. Talked like Jordan, played like Jordan, and won like Jordan. But that just gets me off the topic a little bit. I love Todd Monken, and so do most people. So having that relationship where you worked with Todd Monken is really good to me. And Gus Malzahn, you can say whatever you want about how he has operated over the years. He's a good offensive coordinator, good coach, good offensive coordinator, good offensive mind. And Lindsey worked with both of them. I like that part. Put that over in the category when you're thinking about it. If you're like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't know. Because this is not a name that just rolls off like, oh, yeah, let's go. Let's throw a party. I'll get to more of that. I looked at some of Lindsey's quotes and what he had to say about when he was there at North Carolina. And he was talking about Monken, and he said he's probably had the most influence on him from a schematic standpoint. And again, Monken right now is about as good as you can get when it comes to offensive coordinators. So that's great. And then he says with Monken, especially throwing the ball, he said, but running the ball, it's Malzahn. So a blend of a Malkin and Malzahn. But then when he was talking about his system and the offense that he really wants to be like, he pointed to Lincoln Riley at USC, which is also, right now, if you're saying, hey, the best offenses in USC, is not the run that they had with Heisman Trophy winners and on offense. That's his quote was from last year. And then this year they dipped down a little bit. So it doesn't look as good saying, oh, hey, this is the prototype. This is the kind of model that you want, Lincoln Riley. And that plays into a little bit of what I want to get to in a moment. But I also like that he has dealt with some really good quarterbacks. Nick Mullins and Jarrett Stidham, you can say, oh, what are those guys? Well, those guys were really good when they were in college. Does it matter that, Stidham is a, backup with the Broncos right now? And, Mullins, I don't know, is he at Minnesota or San Francisco? He's a cup of coffee and played some, he was in the NFL. But Lindsey coached those guys. And then Drake May, the number 3 pick in the draft. So you got the 3 M's. If somebody's asking you what you think of the hire, I would say, if I was you, and it's a really easy thing to remember, I like the 3 M's that he's worked with. Monken, Malzahn, and May. Drake May, who looks excellent, and the future looks very bright for him with the New England Patriots. And if I'm Bryce Underwood, knowing that you can, a quarterback, you dealt with a quarterback that was the number 3 pick overall, and look at it. So you've got that experience. So the 3 M's in a real nutshell, real easy. I like it. Now, I mentioned that Lindsey had pointed to Lincoln Riley's offense for his offensive preference. I also liked reading about that at North Carolina. He said he was going to build around the player's strength of who he has when it came down to scheme. And I like that a lot of times. And Wink was like this, but the scheme was already here. And then he changed up all the terminology. I didn't like all that. And then it seemed to have an effect. Again, it had an effect on Michigan this year, but then it worked at the end. I like a coach that has his scheme and it has his ideas, but he's going to fit the players. He's going to fit the scheme to the players to take best advantage of what's happening, not the players to a scheme. And not all coaches like that. That's not a small thing. So I like that he's got his idea of what he wants to run, how he wants to play. It does marry up if you look at his passing and rushing outputs of where he has and points per game and yardage and all of that. And that matches up. You could see why, if usage as tight ends, you could see where him and Jerome Moore would sit down and be like, yeah, hey, we're on the same page here. Let's keep this rolling. Let's keep it going. You can see that. He's not coming in, even though he started the air raid and he's adapted. He's evolved to where he's at right now. So I like all of that as well when it comes down to it. And on the recruiting side, when he was at Auburn, Bo Nix was recruited. Pretty good. And then Tez Johnson, who's at Oregon, Chip Lindsey was a head coach for a minute at Troy, and he recruited Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson, when you watch him at Oregon, this guy's one of the best wide receivers in the country right now. He looks like he's going to be a great pro. I would take him on my NFL team anytime. And, he was involved in that recruitment. So you go like scheme, recruiting, who he coached for, and then what players. And so you got a lot of things to like there. For me, those are the things that I like. Now, why do people then, when you see this, and I saw a lot of this today, there's just like, Chip Lindsey? Meh. I don't know. Might be okay. Really hope Sharon Moore knows what he's doing. This is not something where I'm dancing in the street. Why are people like that? Because this is how it works in sports. And I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just saying that this is the immediate reaction to everyone. It's like this in life. It's like this when you're gambling. Everybody is, what did you do yesterday? What did you do last week? What was your last job? And how did you do there? And as we know, with North Carolina now being coached by Bill Belichick, you're just joining us, that it was over this year with a 6-6 record, and that was his last stop. So you can say, well, and he is tied to that, and we understand. No, he's not Mac Brown, who that's the coach, head coach. But, he was part of a team that went 6-6. So that is why people are not just like, oh, we're back, we're awesome. This is the greatest thing ever. Because his last stop, it wasn't, this home run thing. I could sit here, and I was going through before yesterday on who are some of the guys, if money was no object and you could have anybody, who would it be? And you heard that, Brian Greasy and Craddock from Tulane, who put together really good offensive numbers, and you read about him and you're like, I like him. Maybe you like Marion from UNLV, the Washington State coordinator, then it'll go to Oklahoma. Those guys you all understood. Well, if any of these three guys would have been the hires, people would have been like, this is a grand slam hire. And I put the names up on the screen, and I'll read them for you for those that are just listening to the podcast. No team was more a surprise than what Indiana football did this year with Curt Cignetti. Well, Cignetti, his offensive coordinator is Mike Shanahan. No, not the Mike Shanahan that is the father of Kyle Shanahan and has that outstanding tree of all the coaches. No, the offensive coordinator for Indiana this year, which has scored the most points per game in the country, is a Mike Shanahan that he just played wide receiver at Pitt, and then he started coaching, and he coached with Curt Cignetti in at James Madison, and then he just came over. If a 34-year-old coach, I mean, this would be like Sean McVay, although Sean McVay was even a little bit younger. If Michigan had targeted Mike Shanahan and was bringing him in, people would be flipping. They were like, this is a grand slam hire. Then look at the offense. Look at Cignetti's offense with Shanahan at the controls, the play caller, and going through all of that. This would have been awesome. Or if it would have been Notre Dame's offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock. Now, Notre Dame last year backed up the Brinks truck and made Denbrock the highest paid offensive coordinator in college football. And Notre Dame, like Indiana, first round matchup in the college football playoff. And the tickets are going through the roof, the prices. But Notre Dame is right behind Indiana in their offensive output, number 3 in points per game this year. And, working with Jaden Daniel, and you got the connection there with Bryce Young. Bryce Underwood. Who's Bryce Young? Oh, Bryce Young's the quarterback in Carolina. No, Jaden Daniel, who won the Heisman Trophy. This would also have been a grand slam hire. Wow, Michigan, with all of this going on, went over the top and was able to pull this guy in. Now, it probably wasn't likely that was going to happen. But again, that would have been a grand slam hire. And the other home run hire was, if you look at what Ole Miss did this year offensively and how much they run the ball, really, I think matched up with the way Michigan's smash was. Top 10 in points per game. Charlie Weiss Jr., the OC down at Ole Miss. That'd have been another grand slam hire, and people would have been able to point to, look at their offense is great. It matches up perfectly. This is seamless transition. This is a creative, young offensive mind. And so those would have been the ones that people would have been just, doing handsprings about. All would have been what you would have thought would have been great hires. And when you come from a 6-6 team last year where the head coach and Mac Brown gets dismissed, and then you're out there on the street and you don't have anything to say, man, this guy, I think North Carolina's offense last year in points in the 35th, I think. That's nothing to be like, it's way better than what Michigan was, obviously. But nothing where you're sitting there, pumping your fist saying, yeah, this is what you point to. What you point to are the 3 M's. May, Monken, and Malzahn. That's what I point to. Anyways, that's what I think. Now, I am going to roll through some of the feedback and see what the people, maybe you have a question, maybe you have a point, maybe you've just watched this and say, I completely agree with you. Great job. We've got some basketball coming up ahead, and then some odds and ends that I wanted to get to. Richard asking about Wink. Is he being replaced? No, Wink is earned another year for sure. He's coming back with the way that the defense, about in the second quarter against Indiana. I know some people want to point to Oregon. I guess you could go back to MSU or Illinois, but in the second, so that really the second half, since the Washington game, the first drive or two against Oregon, and then, against Indiana weren't so hot. But look, Ohio State, how the defense played, that was a masterpiece. And so he got it together. So there you go. Richard talking about the bowl. I'll get to my thoughts on the bowl and everything else. People talking a lot of Wink. That's because Richard was talking Wink. Andre saying, last night in the hardwood, hurt. Love the fight, though. Okay. I'm going to get to that coming up. This one is off of everything that we're talking about. Do I prefer boneless or boned-in wings? I thought you were going to ask me about flats or drumsticks, and I was going to be like, yeah, I'll take them both. There's no problem there. A boned-in wing is going to be the choice there. I mean, I'm 54 years old. If I was 5 or 6 years old, I could see saying I prefer boneless, but once you once you turn to be about a teenager, you're gonna want the only answer for this is boned in wings. Now, blue cheese or ranch is a good question, and for me, it is a easy one. I like hot wings, and nothing goes better with hot wings to me than blue cheese all day long. These are things that are acquired taste. You know, you get older, if you experiment with your palate. 20 years ago, if somebody said, "Would you like some red wine?" I'd say, "No, thanks. I don't really care for it." But when I go out to dinner over the last 10, 15 years, well, I've been, married now over, it'll be 12 years coming up. I've acquired the taste for, red wine mixes well with certain dishes. I like putting the stem of the, twisting around. I like taking a look at it. I like smelling it first, and then I like taking a little swig. And but you adjust your palate over there. Blue cheese. If somebody says, "I hate blue cheese," well, again, it doesn't matter if you like breaded chicken wings with no bone, like a 10-year-old would like. You like ranch over blue cheese, and you like just ketchup on your hot dog. I mean, that's kind of the things that like 10-year-olds like. But some people, they don't care about adjusting their palate or anything, and that's fine. And maybe my palate is a little too well adjusted. Yes, you could make that case, but I'm in on blue cheese. Is what that has everything to do with it. So, Rip is going through. Rip's had a lot of good things to go through. He's talking about Denbrock's salary. That's good. I'm all for intelligent young talent at the coordinator position. So am I, Richard. Richard talking some Dan Campbell. Maybe we need the Dan Campbell style of aggressive coaching. It's a pretty interesting point. Richard, I think building an entire show around Dan Campbell's style of aggressive coaching. It's worked up to this point. Lion fans are smitten. They should be with Dan Campbell. I have a slight worry about Dan Campbell. And my worry is that I have watched gamblers, people that are addicted to gambling, that love to gamble. I've been around them my entire life. And what gamblers do, they gamble. And they have a taste for it. And they love it. You hear about all the sharps and people that are winning money. There's these, they always say, people that are talking gambling, "Oh, well, the sharps did this." I don't really believe. I do. There must be some people out there that have made some money in gambling. The sharps, I've never met any of them. I think it's more of just like a myth about all of these super sharp people that love gambling. I think that, and I know it's their identity, and I admit that I'm possibly watching a new way to approach football and to get your players behind you and all of that. I fully admit that. But I also, you know what you know from your experience, and I know gamblers. And whether it's the team identity and say it's a good gamble because they got such a great offensive line and the great running backs and a great offense, and the defense isn't so hot. I understand all that too. And there's only two plays that I didn't like. Richard, you asked this question, so here I am talking about it. There was a few plays I'd have to go back and count them last year. But Dan Campbell's approach cost the Lions last year getting to a Super Bowl. You liked it. I didn't. And you just had to deal with it. And everybody's behind Dan Campbell because everybody loves him so much. But I didn't like this year against Minnesota on the first drive when they were on their own 30 and they faked the punt. That there's nothing sharp about that. I know the team's behind them and everybody likes the gambling and everything. I didn't like that. And I didn't like against the Packers last week on their own 30 when they went for it. That wasn't, and I know you can say anything you want to get behind the Lions and Dan Campbell and the team and the identity and what they believe in and everything else. That was a bad call. Now, the going for it on 4th and inches for the field goal, I understand all that. That one I'm not critical of. It was the other one. So there's only 2 plays this year, but so I do worry that I'm going to be watching the Super Bowl this year and Dan Campbell's going to have a fake punt from his own 10. That worries me. And so they've got this far and everybody's on board with them and let's go. We're gambling. Let's do it. When you gamble, you gamble. Dan Campbell, and maybe I am a little bit too conservative. Maybe if I was playing blackjack and I had a 17 dealt to me, I would stay. And Dan Campbell would be sitting next to me and he would have 19 and Dan Campbell would say, hit. And I'd be like, and then Dan Campbell would get it too. And I'd be like, are you kidding? Remember, I would say, hey, you're not Dan Campbell. So I don't know. This goes back to what Chip Lindsey had to say when he was quoted at North Carolina about his personnel. He's not coming and approaching it with like, hey, this is a scheme and all of you guys got to get together on this scheme. What Lindsey said is that he's going to look at the strengths of his offensive personnel, his quarterback and everything else. And then he is going to take his schemes and he's going to put what is best for the talent that he has. And I think that's what Dan Campbell is doing. Just a little bit too much gambling for me. So that's, I'm not sure that, not only am I not sure, I am sure. I don't want of course, nobody wants a reckless gambler. The problem with gambling, I'll just state it, and I could have just said this and moved on, is that gamblers gamble. And so, no, I don't want a Dan Campbell approach. Woo! Man, there you go. We're going to get some blue cheese and some hot wings, and let's go. Let's do it. Hey, this is like a holiday show. Somebody asking about my goat, Penny. She's doing good. Lola Ray and Penny, they don't like the rain and they don't like when snow's on the ground. They really slow down in the summer. I let them out at like 6 or 7 out of their barn, and then it won't be like 9 o'clock at night. So all day they're just rolling around Peach Mountain, just grazing, and they're just having a great time. Once it gets cold, they go in that barn. And they might come out for a couple seconds. No, thanks. If it rains for a couple days, those goats, you hear them. What do they do? Bleat. Bleat? I was going to say yeet. It's not yeet. It's bleat, I think. It's like barking or mooing or something, whatever they do. They don't like the rain. She's doing good. I'll get some pictures for you. Let's see. A-Train's talking some wings. If the boneless wings are good enough, I'm taking those too. No dip. Yeah, as you say that, A-Train, and I was just, talking about my preference in wings and everything. There's a place in Florida. My wife's friend lives down there, and there's this restaurant. It might even be a chain. I'd have to text her and ask. I think it's called Zingers. Not Zingerman's, but Zingers. And they have, they're more like, they're bigger than pencils. It'd be like a highlighter kind of thickness to these wings. And they are done up very nicely. Almost like when you get like the coconut shrimp, that kind of breading on it, but that's the way they are. And those things are pretty damn good now that I think about it. I don't know but I don't think they have an option but that's their specialty. I'll have to check on that too. Here is a zero cool. If you sprinkle some Jack Sawyer tears, it will enhance the flavor. Oh, Jack Sawyer. You know, the greatest thing, there's so many things. This will be another special show that we'll have to do at some point. Just looking over the last 4 years, and you'll just start going, what was so great about the last 4 years of beating Ohio State? You can be like, there's a million things, and one of them is certainly Sawyer. But the other part will be his counter on the other side of the defensive line, who was the 5-star number 1 player, and Sawyer. The accolades that these guys had, and that Michigan did not have those kind of recruiting stars that Ohio State. I know it's like always like that. Ohio State always has all of these 5 stars. None of them won a game against Michigan. And when I watch the film, Scar on a Monday or Jerry on a Friday, these guys will point to the technique. They'll point to the coaching, and they'll say, look at these great players on the other side. They're getting smashed by Michigan. That's up there really high. If I'm out there on the recruiting trail and I'm talking to the defensive players, offensive players too, I'm saying, look, I'm going to be honest with you on everything, Michigan, everything they have to offer, but you might want, if you're thinking about Ohio State, you might want to put those guys on blast about their coaching, because they're not giving you the best coaching. It's just not happening. And let's go ahead and watch the film on the Mason Blue Review over the last couple of years. It's all available on there. And you just look at some of that and you're like, man, don't you want to be the best version of yourself? Rip is on a roll. I don't know if I've ever seen Rip on the show before, and here he is coming to the table with a bunch of different questions. He's asking about Milroe, and if he thinks he will play in the bowl, do Bama fans want Milroe back? I'm going to say no and yes. Milroe is going to be a first-round draft pick. I have a bet with somebody on here. It's not a great year to be the Browns or the Raiders or any of the other half dozen teams that need a quarterback. I know there's some up there, but I think Milroe can be as good as Shadir Sanders or Cam Ward. Maybe one of those guys. Bo Nix, who I mentioned that Chip Lindsey helped recruit when he is at Auburn. Bo Nix could be as good. If Bo Nix was coming out this year, maybe, I don't know. Of course, we have seen him play. I would rather have Bo Nix than any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. And with Milroe, from what I've seen from him, it's not just because Michigan stopped him in the greatest game ever in the Rose Bowl and everything that it meant. I like his skill set. He is going to have to polish up the passing a little bit more, and Sanders does seem to have it, the fluidity, the accuracy, just the way I like his game, but not where I'm thinking that he's anything close to a surefire pick. But Milroe's going pro. I don't think there's any chance that he's coming back to play for Alabama. Pinky in, pinky out. This is what I'm talking about. Drinking my tea. Yeah, I've never gone down that part. My touchdown celebration. It's been a while. I have let's see if I can find a football in here in the studio. There was one. It's been a while. Do I have anything that I can? What's this? If this was a football, I would score, get in there. I like faking like I'm going to spike it, like getting down like I'm just going to do like a Gronk spike. And then instead of spiking it, I drop the ball behind my back and I catch it with my left arm. And then I bring the ball up and then I spin it and do the hand warmer. That's always been my spike. And I tell you, I don't catch it every time, but when I do, I've not everybody. I've frozen up for a second. Hopefully, this show's not over. Oh, good. Every time that I have done my touchdown celebration, I've noticed that the people have liked it. The other players, they're all like, "Oh, that's a good one." And I think when I was really young, I was doing some Billy White Shoes Johnson type touchdown dance, but and Billy had the 6-shooters, and he would holster them and everything else. I did pick that up from someone, the old fake spike, drop it behind your back and catch it and then spin it. But I don't know who to credit for doing it. That's it. Thank you very much, Rip. Let's get some more in. Let's get some more. We got lots of feedback before we're getting to basketball coming up here in a moment. RS, does Davis Warren transfer before the bowl game or stay to compete for quarterback 3? I think that he's going to stay. I think he's going to stay. Stick and stay if you're Davis Warren, but that's just a guess. I'm not talking with his representatives, or I don't have the feel of that Michigan. I think Michigan would like him to stay. I don't know how much money, whatever their valuation is of Davis Warren, if they're saying, hey, here's $100,000. And then Davis Warren is telling his agent, hey, if you can get me 150, if you can give me 200, I'm out of here. With a lot of these guys, that's what's going on right now. And that's just a guess. I think that Warren probably got offered up like $100,000 by Michigan. And then he left. He knows the situation that they're bringing in not only Underwood, but they're going to be bringing in somebody from the portal. And so he has to tell his agent, is it worth one? If you're getting 100,000, is there a team out there? Let's just say Eastern. I like to bring up Eastern. Is Eastern ready to say, hey, you return, here are the keys. Here's 150. You can be our quarterback? Maybe. Depends how you want to play. If he's coming to Michigan to play, you do know that he knows that it's very unlikely that he's going to see any snaps. So I don't like saying 50-50. But I think he did get that taste of playing. Would I be a quarterback 3? Or maybe even would I be just in the quarterback room at Michigan? Or would I go to Eastern for an extra $50,000? I think that Michigan degree would look pretty good up on the wall. Feel like, was he beloved by Michigan fans? Yeah, I think he is. My prediction is that he stays. Okay. Richard's talking about overcoming bad calls comes with being a Lion fans over 60 years of appointment. It's 60 years of disappointment. It's a tough watch. I know, the games are so riveting, Richard. It's a little bit like last night's Michigan basketball game, which I'm going to get to in a moment. It's thrilling. It takes you on a ride. And I just think, I don't want to say my older age. Now this is like the second time that I'm talking about. I think I'm more conservative than football coaches nowadays. And it even goes back to, not this year, 3 years ago. When Khalil Mullings, remember, if you've watched the show, when Khalil Mullings threw that blind pass on that 4th and 1 at Ohio State, a running back who had just moved from linebacker. And the play would have been for Donovan Edwards. Remember, it was like, it wasn't necessarily, catered or tailored for Khalil Mullings. A 4th and 1 at the Horseshoe in the 4th quarter. Let's dial up a blind Khalil Mullings pass. If I would have been in the meeting room These guys would have been all excited. Harbaugh, let's go! Enthusiasm, unmatched of mankind. Let's attack this. I'd have been like, let's not throw that. Let's do something else. That's crazy. But they did it, and it worked. And everybody's like, it was the greatest play ever. It was a great play. But, man, there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong with that. I did not like that one. I would have done the same. Dan Campbell wouldn't like me on it. Dan Campbell would not like me on his staff. Ben Johnson would say, get out of here with all of that. Zingers. A-Train knows it. Do you like zingers? A-Train. I'm not going. I don't. Luigi. There's a lot of things. It's hard not to follow it. I haven't followed it that closely. I was watching yesterday. They were bringing him in, and he was shouting back at reporters or the paparazzi or whatever else. And then the next time, he was dead quiet, didn't say anything, just went in the car. And like one of the paparazzi was like, "Hey, where's Super Mario?" I didn't mean not to laugh at the situation and everything else. And I know a lot of people they're fascinated with it, but I don't know. There's a lot of people that are just don't think things are adding up. It's a real things on the bullet, all this stuff. So I don't know. There's no time frame on this show today. We're just rolling. What other animals do you have on your farm, and do you name them after your favorite U of M players? Well, when we got the goats originally, if it would have been up to me, I would have named one of them Woodson. I think the other one would have been named Brady. I think that's a great way to go when you're talking about naming your animals. Meanwhile, my daughter wanted to name one of the goats Penelope. And so one of the goats was named Penelope. And she's the sweetest goat ever, and Penny for sure. And then the other goat is named after my grandmother, whose name was Lola, and my dad, whose middle name was Ray, Lola Ray. So we've named him after family members, which is something that I have found that people think is odd, because my dog, who's passed away about a year and a half, my pandemic dog, who was the greatest white German Shepherd ever, bless him, we named him Louie. My daughter liked the name Louie. She thought it was great. Well, my dad's name is Louie. And he was still alive when that was happening. He said, "What do you think about, my daughter likes the name Louie?" He said, "I think it's great." And so in honor of my dad, who I remember growing up, he had a friend named Chad. And Chad came over right when we were getting this, we were adopting a dog from a shelter and everything. And Chad was there, and Chad had Lou Gehrig's disease and was, passed away. And he said, "Chad, we're going to name the dog after you." And so we had a dog named Chad. As far as other animals, we've had a number of different cats. We just lost. We had two brother cats who were 17 years old, and just last week, one of them, unfortunately, we had to turn in. Bless Vader. And so I wasn't around when that cat was there. My son named him after Star Wars. We have Vader, and we have a cat named Grievous. We also have another cat who was a rescue that my daughter named. What's his name? Drawing a blank. Nemo. Sorry. Not very nice of me. And then we have now two dogs. And my daughter's named both of those dogs too. So no, we did not name them Woodson, but I think that's always a good thing to do. A-Train, do I have any thoughts of Ohio trying to ban flag planting? Sure, I do. I think that it's ridiculous. The whole thing, you can't really ban. What they need to do is, if you're going to allow the other team to celebrate after a win, if they banned flag planting, the team would just come up with something else. Let's go to the logo and stomp it, which is going to be, and it's whatever you can do to kind of disrespect the other team or have fun, however you look at it. You're going to have to, if you're really, and I know there's a, legislation or something that's been put forward, I would laugh. If I was a politician, I would say you're a clown and everything else, but I would say, how about winning the ball game and then you have to worry about it? But you would have to put in a number of different things. No, you can't stomp the logo. You can't have any kind of acts that would be considered defaming or degrading to the field or the logo. Are they going to have to line the police around the logo? Look, you got to allow the other team to celebrate. And so that's where you really can't. You need to allow the other team to celebrate, and you might think it's bad taste. You might be, as a Michigan fan, you might love it, and I've found that most people do. But even if those are old school and you don't like it, there's always going to be something that they could do to get under the skin of the opponent by celebrating. I don't know what it would be, but, the kids are creative. And if they banned flag planting, you know what I saw just at the basketball game last week, Saturday, did you see what Sharon Moore was doing? If they banned flag planting and Michigan went down there in 2026 and won the game, and you'd have all the police and everything else and their pepper spray drawn and everything, and Michigan won it and they didn't have a flag because it was banned, they would just go out there and act like this, the simulated flag planting that Sharon Moore was doing at the basketball game. And then they would get all, the next Jack Sawyer would be all up in arms and everything else. That's ridiculous, is what that is. But it's fun from a Michigan standpoint. I never thought that the flag would, that it would take off like that, but I notice. I don't go into it. I think some of the reporters, and I saw them taking pictures of the flag last week, it didn't occur to me like, hey, this is the flag. Maybe I should take some photos of it. It didn't occur to me yesterday. Maybe I should just touch the flag or something. It's a big deal. People like it. Rip pointing out that Milroe's numbers, it's not always about the numbers. You can jump on that one too, Rip. I'm putting it out there. Not everything that I say is looked at on a book or from Pro Football Focus or wherever else you get your information from. I'm a little bit like Chris Sims. I like to look at the quarterbacks myself and rank them and what I'm looking at. And then I do like seeing what the experts have to say then and matching it all up. I really haven't seen what the experts are saying about Milroe. I'm saying myself, based on what I see from those other quarterbacks, Cam Ward, he's a little bit all over the place, throwing the ball, scrambling around. I don't like him. I like Sanders, and I like Milroe. Those two. It's not a great quarterback class, to be honest. Let's go here. Richard said he liked Milroe more than Orgy. Yeah, Richard, you were the one that pointed out, and I remember when the Rose Bowl was happening, Harbaugh said, they asked him about Milroe, and he said, I think famously, that he was a more polished Orgy. You could go back and say, oh, that's hilarious. Well, a very much more polished Orgy. Hadley getting in, he likes the flag planting bit. Let's see what he's saying. The legislature is proposing a bill to ban opposing fans to plant a flag at the horse pit. Typical Ohio government rhetoric. Yeah, look, sometimes, Big Gretsch will make a bet with, another governor and, things like that. But I don't know. They got a lot of different things to go over before we try to some, mythical legislation. If you're really sitting there, would you say, okay, it's good if you do this, if you think some hillbillies in your backyard are going to vote for you because, yeah, let's do it. But if you're really sitting in there, you're going to be like, okay, can we move on? I mean, we're really going to try to debate this? Are we really going to talk it through? Or we're just all having fun, right? Should they line the stadium with armed guards, with pepper spray? Anybody makes a move after Michigan wins? Why don't they send some of that money to their collective? They can get it up, spend 50, 100 million on some players. Maybe get some coaches in there as well. Rip making it political. The Ohio Sportsmanship Act. That sounds like now I want to get in on that one. Old Josh Williams. Debate that one. Woo! Let's do it. Penny is the GOAT. That's true. Okay. A few more here. I guess that one didn't want me to put that one up there, Rip, because I tried to click on. Now none of them are working. I'll give it a second. So let me go on to the basketball game from last night. Uh-oh. I hope I'm still on. I think I am. Freezes for a second. Computer's running. I feel like Ohio might be sabotaging me or something. So I'm just trying to have fun today. So the basketball game last night, if you stayed up for that, it was quite an experience. Somebody said in the post game that it was the most excruciating. They didn't use. It was the most painful. I don't know if they used painful. Forgot the words that they used. It was one of the most grueling games, and they didn't use that word to watch because of the nature of Michigan being up, the Michigan being down. Look like you're going to turn off the TV, and then they fight back, and then they lose. At the very end, where they had a shot to win it, certainly tie it with under 4 seconds to play. But the turnovers are the thing that has Michigan fans perplexed. They're turning the ball over at one of the highest rates in the country. In fact, I was looking at it today. They averaged, was it over 15-1, which is the most out of any of the Power 4 schools. A couple other ones over there, and Va Tech was down there with them. They are a power, but they're the worst team at taking care of the basketball. And so the question, everybody, will have a theory. And so I will just give you mine. The players look out of control, too out of control when they have the ball. And they have players that are just not used to being in this kind of position. Michigan is trying something that I've never seen in basketball in my entire life. They have a 7-foot point guard who they are looking to calm the waters and control the game and be your floor general, and Danny Wolf. No team has ever tried this in my life. And Wolf turns it over. Too much for that. And turnovers, it's like hot shooting. They're contagious. You start throwing a blind pass that ends up in the third row, well, somebody else is doing it too. It's a human nature thing. And it was even on the final play. Danny Wolf, let's get him the ball. Let him throw a pass. It was too low. It was too low for Roddy Gale Jr. It hit his shin. He ran up. So they're trying something that is a little bit odd. And then you look to, okay, well, let's go to a true point guard. Michigan's true point guard is Trey Donaldson. And what we've seen from him is that it's the game at times has been a little bit too fast for him. And it goes back to Dusty May and the style that he wants to play. And his style is go, get a shot up fast as you can. If you have the ball, if somebody throws the ball to you, you need to immediately take it, shoot it, or you need to drive or pass. There's no thinking. And it's has players out of their comfort zone. And they're unfamiliar with this system. And they've thrown all of these players together. 4 out of their 5 starters are transfers. So this is entirely new for everybody of these guys playing together. And actually, when they go 8, 9 deep, Cheddar comes in. He was here last year, but nobody else. So really 6 out of their top 9, they're transfers that are in here. So you've unfamiliar system. All of these players have been thrown together. And so can they adjust to this? And it's watching Roddy Gale Jr. What normally you do, almost all teams in the history of basketball, you have a floor general, a quarterback, a director, a point guard who calms the floor, gets you in the right sets, handles the ball, runs the plays. And Roddy Gale Jr. is what I have seen from super athlete, nice player, but he's too Jekyll and Hyde. You'll give him the ball one time and he's going to throw it at your feet, or he's going to throw it behind his back to the other team, or he's going to dribble it off his foot out of bounds. Then he'll have a couple plays in a row where he looks dynamite. You can't have that kind of point guard, and Donaldson's the same way. The biggest play of that game was Donaldson in a one-possession game. Just he might as well have been blindfolded. He just ran through the defense and then jumped without knowing where he was going to throw the ball, and it was a turnover. It ended up where his foot was on the baseline. And Dusty Mays tried things. Remember the first couple games, he like 2 or 3 minutes in, he benched the entire starting 5 because they were turning it over left and right. So the good news is that Michigan, they have the 2 7-footers that they have the pick and roll with, and that's going to be something that teams are going to have to deal with. And look, if they really did have a floor general and they really did have somebody who could get them in all these plays, I think you would not only be talking about a team that could make the tournament, you'd be talking about a team like they could play with anybody in the country. If they could really dial this in and get this going, this is a team that could make a run to the Final Four. I wouldn't say that right now because we're such a long ways away, although they've played a third of the season. They got tougher games coming up. But when the Big Ten and the scouting that goes into it, I don't think that they can improve that much. And you have to have, I'm not saying these guys aren't smart when I say you need a cerebral point guard, but you have to have somebody that can direct everything and calm things down, and they don't right now. They're trying the approach that's never been tried before with a 7-foot playmaker at point guard who brings the ball up and is the best passer. He's incredible to watch. He's exciting. I mean, hey, look, if you would have told me before the season that Michigan is just going to have this amazing player that's just going to be fun to tune in, that is going to be throwing the ball all over the place, and sometimes looks like Larry Bird, and other times, he's going to be running a pick and roll, and with the other 7-footer, these guys are going to be entertaining as hell, and these games are going to be fun to watch. It's sign me up, and they look like they'll make the tournament. Like, I didn't think that this team was going to make the tournament heading into the season. I didn't come on here and say that because I didn't want to disappoint people, but I feel like they are going to make it now. But the thing that I thought that would hold them back was going to be not having somebody at the end of the game to take over, to make the big shots and make the big passes. And I think that is going to prevent them, which is in part and parcel to the turnovers, is going to prevent them from winning the Big Ten or making some kind of run in March. I do expect them to get better. But for all of those things, when you play at a super fast speed, you can get better, but these guys, it's just not in their comfort zone. The one practice that I was allowed to go to, everybody was allowed to go to one, in the media anyways. What struck me, and everybody that watched it, they probably came out with the same thing. Wow, these guys play at a real breakneck speed. Everything they do. They're in one drill, they blow the whistle, they're sprinting over to the next thing. Everybody, it's constant motion, it's constant speed. Well, it's nice to get that many possessions going and get that many shots up, but it's also something where the downside is if you play run and gun, and you're shooting yourself in the foot, it hurts. And then when it really gets down to a one possession game, even if you're in the half court and everything's like, you're always like, go, 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 go. It's you. I think you need years of practice, and they've got weeks and just a couple months in for this. So make the tournament. It's exciting. It's fun. I just think there's a cap on, I don't think anybody's talking about Final Four. They might have been in the first 10 minutes of the game last night. There might be some people that are talking about, winning the Big Ten this year. That just doesn't, but it's fun. And I do think that they can get into the tourney. So, I don't want to sound wishy-washy here either. I like it. I like Dusty May. I like the way the guys play. It's just that last night you were through every range of emotion that you had. They look like the greatest thing ever that you're watching, and you're ready to, build a statue of Dusty May. And then in the middle part of the game, you're ready to turn it off and throw the TV out in the street and say, to hell with these guys. This is the most preposterous passing I've ever seen. These guys have no clue. And then they chipped away and fought back and got in position to win the game. So what a roller coaster ride that was. Woo! That's what I saw from Michigan last night. All right, I'll take some feedback on the game. A reminder, after every Michigan basketball game, the Maize and Blue review is on. We go live after the game. Be a minute or two, sometimes 5 minutes. I like to type up the stats and put them on the scroll so you can see how they shot and everything there. So that can take a couple minutes. The buzzer doesn't go off and I hit the live, but a couple minutes after we go live. Shiva, which I love the name. It reminds me of, Shiv. Shiv played in, is it Ascension? What was it called? Progression, Ascension. I forget. The HBO show, pretty good show. Shiv is in there. What do you do if you're taking over the throne? The Ascension? Ascension? It's not Ascension. It's really close to that. Okay. RS. Wolf acting like a point guard and averages 4 turnovers a game. That's right. That's true. It's not Shiv, it's Shiva, but one thing we do know is they can probably score with the best of them, just cut down on the turnovers. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a little easier said than done. OT's checking in, says Wolf looks great. If this team was in year 2, they'd be fine. They were ahead of schedule. I'm with you on that. I mean, they're fun. Again, as much as I'm telling you, let's cap the Final Four talk or the win of the Big Ten. I mean, you got to tune in to watch them, because inside of one game, you're going to want guys fired, the coaches, you're going to have players to transfer, and then the next thing you know, you're going to be planning the parade route and getting in on your phone and buying some jerseys. That's how crazy it is. Succession. Wow, I was so close to that. It was a pretty wild show. I like when somebody calls me bro. Succession, I watched the first 2 or 3, and I didn't like any of the characters. I thought all of the family members, I thought they did a terrible job bringing in the actors. None of them looked like they were related. And I know that could be a small thing for people, but for me, I'm like, these guys, they're telling me that this is a family. So that was like after 2 or 3 of the shows. And so nobody was really likable, but it ends up being, I mean, it's this cutthroat, just for the cutthroat aspect of business. And, you got to be, what did, it's been a couple of years since I've watched it. What did the guy say? I mean, you got to be, people like to say you got to have a dog in you when you're playing defense or in basketball. You got to have a dog in you. That's what the old man was saying. You got to be a cold stone killer. You're going to be in the media. There's no nice patting people on the back and let's do no. You need a stone cold killer. It's worth watching. That's for sure. Even if it's kind of ridiculous. I've got nothing to do with ESPN. If I could move Orgy, would you? Well, I would move him. Yes. I would move him to fullback, or I would not leave him as quarterback. I would put him at fullback or linebacker. And I would let him return punts, maybe as an up man. I only say that, not that he has the greatest speed, but Harbaugh was talking about him as the greatest punt returner of all, or kick returner of all time. Well, he could do that. I would expect Orgy to be transferring in short order. I can't believe he would stay around, but he might understand that he's not going to be able to play quarterback. It's kind of the same thing with Jaden Davis. However that worked. I don't expect him to stay around. Who else don't I expect to stay around? All the offensive line. I was surprised by Doman. That was weird. I think most of the Cody Jones, is he transferred yet? I would be surprised if he stays around. McBurrows, I could see him leaving. I hope Derek Moore stays. That would be nice. Pierce, Etta, Barr, Alessandro. I mean, there's Hewlett, Hayden Moore, some of those guys, and then out of the freshman from last year, who knows about those guys? We saw what? We might have saw a minute of Edmond as a corner, but not much. So all those guys, who knows? Kumba, Ishmael. There'll be a lot of those guys hit the portal here coming up. Let's get Bryce some receivers. I'm with you on that. And here we got RS saying we got a wide receiver from Miami, 6'4". Hey, sounds good to me. Tall wide receivers. All right, couple of things that I wanted to close out the show with. Congratulations to Steve Hutchinson. I can recall when Michigan was recruiting Hutchinson out of Florida, and he came in, started as a true freshman next to Jeff Backus and then ultimately on the 97 national championship. And then Backus and Hutchinson not only played next to each other their entire Michigan career at left guard and left tackle, then they were drafted. What was it, like number 17 and number 18? Were they drafted like back to back in the NFL draft? And if Backus, if he didn't go to the Lions, he made an incredible amount of money being a left tackle for as long as he did, but he was there in that long stretch for the Lions. I think Backus doesn't get the long view respect maybe that he should have as a football player at Michigan. But this is about Hutchinson. I like every time I hear him speak. And congratulations to Hutch for getting into the College Football Hall of Fame, also a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And then a bit of sad news. Bobby Morrison, former Michigan coach, has passed away this week. Bobby Moe, as many of his former players called him. He was really liked by his former players. I saw a number of them paying tribute to Bobby Moe on social media. And Bobby Moe was the recruiting coordinator when I first started working in Ann Arbor. And I can remember doing a couple different shows at different places around Ann Arbor, and Bobby Moe would come out and talk about all the players. And this was before the internet. Sounds like I am old. Third time. You are old. Before the internet. The one recruiting show we did, somebody handed me in 1995, a cassette tape, VHS tape. And we played it, but it was the first time in seeing any of these players on the VHS. It was a pretty good recruiting class. They're like, hey, there's this running back at Fremont, Ohio, Charles Woodson. He'll probably play corner. I'm like, damn, they should maybe play him at running back. He looks pretty good. As quarterback from San Mateo, California, Tom Brady. Has anybody had a better recruiting class than the 95 Michigan class? Tom Brady, Charles Woodson. I remember thinking Brady, got a good arm, but kind of like when they were watching his film when he was going to be a pro. I'm like, nah, he's all right, but I don't know about Tom Brady. I remember being most impressed by a kid from Detroit, a running back out of the class named Clarence Williams. Super fast. Called him the Blur. Our own nickname for him. But condolences go out to the entire Michigan family and obviously Bobby Morrison's family as well. Michigan man, beloved by his players and the Michigan family, all have heavy hearts today with Bobby Moe. So that's it. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for participating. And we'll be back on Friday. And we'll do it all over again. If you are not signed up to the Maize and Blue Review, I don't know what more I can tell you to do. You like Michigan, go over there and do it. You're looking for a present for someone in your family. It's the perfect present for the Michigan fan in your life. Maybe it's the one that's listening or watching this right now. Thank you for joining us, and talk with you on Friday or over on the Maize and Blue Review right now. See ya.